Listen carefully. Right now, someone may be controlling the way you think, not through violence, not through threats, and not through technology. They are doing it with psychology. The frightening part is that you probably trust this person. It could be your partner, a close friend, a family member, or someone you see every single day. They never tell you what they are doing. Instead, they slowly reshape your reality until you stop trusting yourself. Little by little, your confidence disappears. Your decisions no longer feel like your own. And eventually, you begin to believe that every problem is somehow your fault. Today, we are going to uncover 10 hidden manipulation techniques that psychologists have studied for years. Some of them are surprisingly subtle. Others have destroyed relationships, confidence, and even people's sense of reality. Stay until the end, because sign number 8 is one of the most psychologically damaging tactics ever used. But before we get there, let's begin with something almost everyone experiences without realizing it: the illusion of choice. At first, it feels completely harmless. In fact, it doesn't even look like manipulation. That is exactly why it works. Real manipulators rarely force people to do anything. Force creates resistance. Pressure creates rebellion. A skilled manipulator wants neither. Instead, they make you believe the decision belongs to you. Imagine that your partner doesn't want you to go out tonight. They could simply tell you to stay home, but that would reveal their intention, so they choose a different approach. They quietly say, "You can go if you want. I just thought we could spend some time together because I've had a difficult day." But the choice is yours. On the surface, they sound kind, even caring. But listen carefully. If you decide to stay home, they get exactly what they wanted. If you leave, guilt follows you the entire evening. Suddenly, the choice no longer feels free. They never locked the door. They simply built an invisible maze around your emotions. And without realizing it, you walked exactly where they wanted you to go. This is why psychological manipulation is so dangerous. It doesn't control your actions. It controls the emotions behind your actions. But creating guilt is only the beginning, because once someone learns how to control your emotions, the next step is much more dangerous. They begin controlling your reality. Imagine this. One day, you finally catch them lying. This time, there is no confusion. You have the messages. You remember the conversation. You know exactly what happened. For the first time, you decide to confront them calmly. You simply say, "It hurt me when you lied." A healthy person would explain, maybe apologize, maybe accept responsibility. But manipulators play by different rules. Within seconds, the entire conversation changes. Instead of answering your question, they become angry. Suddenly they say, "I only lied because you never trust me." You always expect the worst. You are constantly looking for problems. Without noticing it, you stop talking about the lie. Now you are defending yourself. The spotlight has moved. They are no longer the person who caused the problem. You are. This technique is known as reverse blame. It is one of the fastest ways to escape responsibility. The goal isn't to prove they are innocent. The goal is to make you feel guilty for asking questions in the first place. Eventually, something even stranger happens. You begin apologizing, not because you were wrong, but because the emotional pressure becomes unbearable. And when the conversation finally ends, nothing has been solved. Their behavior stays exactly the same. Only your confidence becomes a little weaker. The frightening part is that this rarely happens just once. Manipulators repeat this pattern over and over again. Each time, your trust in your own judgment becomes smaller. Each time, speaking up feels more exhausting. Until one day, remaining silent seems easier than telling the truth. That is exactly what they want. Because a person who doubts themselves is much easier to control. But even this isn't enough. A truly skilled manipulator knows there is something even more powerful than guilt: emotional hunger. And once they create that hunger, escaping becomes much more difficult. At the beginning, everything feels perfect. They reply to every message. They constantly compliment you. They make you feel important. They remember the smallest details about you. For the first time in a long time, you feel truly seen. And that is exactly what they want. Because before someone can control your emotions, they first need to earn your trust. Then, without warning, everything changes. The messages become shorter. The calls become less frequent. Their excitement slowly disappears. You start noticing the distance. At first, you assume they are just busy. Then you wonder if something happened. Eventually, you ask yourself a different question. What did I do wrong? That question is the real trap. Because nothing actually changed about you. They changed on purpose. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. Manipulators know that constant affection becomes predictable. Predictable affection loses its power. So they replace certainty with uncertainty. One day they make you feel loved. The next day they act like you barely exist. Your brain becomes confused. Instead of walking away, you chase the version of them that existed in the beginning. You remember how warm they once were. You convince yourself that person is still there. You just have to work harder. So you give more attention, more patience, more forgiveness. You slowly begin sacrificing your own emotional needs just to receive a tiny amount of theirs. Without realizing it, you are no longer building a relationship. You are chasing a memory. The manipulator understands something most people never notice. A starving person doesn't ask why there is no food. They simply become desperate to eat. An emotional starvation creates the same kind of desperation. Once you become emotionally dependent, saying no becomes much harder. Leaving becomes almost impossible. But dependence alone isn't enough. Because as long as you still have people who care about you, someone might eventually help you escape. A manipulator knows that. So the next step is removing every person who might open your eyes. Very few manipulators will ever tell you to stop seeing your friends. That would be too obvious. Instead, they work quietly, patiently, almost invisibly. Imagine you spend an evening with your closest friend. You come home feeling happy. Then they casually ask, "Did you notice how your friend kept interrupting you tonight?" At first, you hadn't noticed. But now you start replaying the conversation in your head. A few days later, they mention something else. "I don't think your family really understands you." Another week passes. They always seem jealous when something good happens to you. None of these comments sound dramatic. Each one seems harmless on its own. But together, they begin planting seeds of doubt. Little by little, your trust in the people around you starts fading. You call your friends less often. You visit your family less frequently. Not because anyone forced you, because it slowly feels easier not to. This is exactly how isolation works. It is rarely built in a single day. It is built one small conversation at a time. Months later, something strange happens. You need advice. You need support. You need someone who can tell you that something isn't right. You look around. There is nobody left, except them. Now they become your only source of comfort, your only source of approval, your only version of reality. And once someone becomes your entire world, controlling that world becomes incredibly easy. This is why isolation is one of the most dangerous manipulation techniques. It doesn't just separate you from people, it separates you from perspective. Because the moment you stop hearing different opinions, you become much easier to convince that the manipulator is always right. Unfortunately, they are still not finished. Even after isolating you from everyone else, they have one final obstacle: your own memory. And that is exactly what they attack next.